Hello everyone, this is Joel over here, and this is the 13th episode of a React series. And in this episode, we will just look into what is Fetch API, how to fetch an API using useEffect. So let's get started. So in this video, we will just looking into two topics, which is fetching an API from already written JSON file, and second thing is how we can write our own JSON file and to host it in a local server and fetch those details and showcase in our web page. So these two things let us see. And you guys know, right, JSON file is being used as a backend. So since we don't have any backend work because it's a full front-end development course, I have taken a website which is JSON placeholder. So this website has some JSON files. We can use this as our practice session over here. So here you can see under resources, there are so many JSON packages over here, or else JSON resources are there. So under this URL post, you have 100 posts, and comments, you have 500 comments. So let's click and see. See, you have 100 objects of JSON file. Same way, comments, you have 500 comments over here. And again, same way in albums, you have 100 albums over here. Okay, so using this, we are gonna access our JSON and we'll just learn how to use the endpoints of our JSON file inside our React project. So in first for half, we are gonna look into how to use already having an endpoint JSON file inside a React project. And in second part, we will just create our own endpoints in JSON file and we will just serve it in local server and we'll just use it in our React application. So first in this, so let me go with this first post itself. Okay, so I'll just copy the link of this web page. You can see the web page link is https jsonplaceholder.typecode.com/post. So this is the URL. I just copy this. Okay, now let me open our VS Code. So now let me close this terminal and let me hide this too. Okay, so right now I am in cards.jsx. That's fine. Okay, here this is the state. Okay, let's see what is ours. React page. Okay, this is the place where we stopped in last episode, right? Okay, so here under inside a use effect, I will just I just call a function which is fetch. That's it. Fetch is a method. You're gonna use something to fetch. So what should be passed inside a fetch argument? We have to pass this copied URL in double quotes. Okay, so fetch is a method we're just calling over here and we are passing the JSON files URL in double quotes over here. Okay, if fetch is an method, then what will this fetch will return? If you guys studied JavaScript, you would have known this topic called promising. So fetch is gonna return a promise because while you're fetching some data from particular URL, it takes some time to fetch those data. So what this fetch method says is, I will promise you that I will fetch the details and come to you. Still that, wait for me. So that is the promise over here. So fetch is going to give a promise that he is going to fetch the data from the given URL. Until that, be patient, I'll fetch and come. That's the thing fetch is going to do over here. So once we fetch, we have to use this, right? So of course in promise concept we have this dot then. Using dot then you can use the promise things and you can just compute it. So dot then, okay, so dot then is a method. You can see it shows promise response. Okay, dot then I'm gonna use a anonymous function over here. Let's say I'll name the function as response. Okay, and I'll just get the data. So console.log response. Okay, so what I'm doing over here, I'm just fetching the data from the URL and then I'm using dot then and getting the files from this URL and storing in this response function, and I'm using this to print it in console.log. Okay, let's go and check what happens over here. Console. Okay, I'll just remove these things. I'll just make this comment. Where is this? Okay, fine. So now let's refresh it. Here you can see we got the files over here, which is response. This is it occurs two times, as we seen in our previous episode. Use effect comes under strict mode, and it's printing twice in our console. Okay, so this is our file from the URL, but this is very hard to access because it's not a proper JSON file. It's actually not a JSON file. So we have to convert this file into a proper JSON file to get our own access over here, so that we can easily understand the JSON concepts, I mean the objects over there. So we should convert this into JSON file. So how can this be done is, we are getting the links value in response and we are just printing this response, right? So now what I'm going to do is, I will return this response. Okay, just a sec. I will use this curly braces since it's multiple statements over here. Okay, so now I'll just return response dot JSON is a method. Okay, so I'm just returning the response as a JSON. So we are just calling this method over here, and once this is written we have to use it in somewhere, right? So again I'll use this dot then, and then getting as a data, and I'm printing this console.log data. Okay, so first URL has been fetched and stored in response, and we are just printing this response, and we are just returning this response as a JSON file to this data, and this data has again been printed in console.log data over here. So now let's go and check. Let me refresh. Okay, so this is the thing which is console.log response thing, and this is the JSON file. Same way response and JSON file. So here you can see, if you access, you can see everything's are in JSON format. You can easily understand the objects over here. So this is how you can use the API endpoints in a React, and you can just see the JSON file over here. Okay, so the next part of our video is, let's see how to create our own JSON file, because here you can see we have created this by hardcode method. We have done with hardcode. Let's create a JSON file for this, and we will serve it as a local server, and we will just try to use this in our web element over here, which is we'll try to render in our React thing. So now, okay, this is fine. So okay, now let's create the JSON file over here. So in program structure, let me create a new folder, which is let's keep it as data. Okay, I'll just keep it as data. So we have created a folder named data, and inside this data folder, let me create a file which is what shall I keep it, cards.jsx. okay, sorry, not cards.jsx, which is JSON. Okay, cards.json. So here inside this use state we have a list, right? Let me copy this, cut this list. Okay, I'll just cut this list, and now I'll just pass an argument null, which is empty over here, and in cards.jsx I'll just paste it. So we have to alter this JSON format. This is not a proper JSON format. We have to do some alterings over here. First alter, we have to create a name, which is cards. Okay, I guess this card should be in double quotes, and this is an object over here. Okay, so I have created a one object. This is cards, and this object is holding all these things, and this is as usual, which we seen in our previous episodes. Okay, you can see some red underlines are happening over here. This is basically because an error. So In cast or JSX, we have just given as a variable, but here you have to given into a quotes over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll just surround this using quotes. So now you can see it's been changed over here. So instead of changing everything, I'll just use find and replace. So when you use command plus F, it will open this find and replace. So here if you just click on this arrow, it will toggle something, and first box is used to find and second box is used to replace. So I'm finding ID, so all the IDs is been selected, and instead of ID I want ID in quotes. So once you have done, if you just click on this button, it will switch all the IDs into quotes ID. So you're just finding an ID and replacing it with it. Same way, title and inside quotes title, and click the button. And next thing is description. I'll just copy this and paste it in, or else if you just click on command plus enter, you can access this button using shortcuts. Okay, so next we have price, and prices should be inside this thing, command plus enter. And at last we have image, and this image will be quotes img. Okay, done. So yeah, all the errors have been gone, and still we have this image errors. This is because we didn't import images over here. So you can see all these images have been disappeared. So basically we are just taking these URLs and storing into a variables, and these variables is being accessed over there. So in JSON file you can't do this. You have to copy this whole path. I'll just copy, and instead of HTML it should be path with codes over here. Okay, same way for this CSS2, I'll just copy, erase this codes and paste it. Slash has been missed. Okay, and here JS. Okay, and React we have copy, remove this codes and paste. Okay, so we have made a JSON file. Second thing, we are importing an image from assets, right? But our assets is inside src folder, so you will just move these assets to our data folder. It's asking to move, just click on move. Okay, so we have assets in the data folder so that you can access your image. Done. So everything we have done, we have created whole JSON file. If you just check in your website, it says nothing. First of all, it says these assets is not available. Let me go to this and comment this. Okay, now you can see error is occurred because you can't do read map, because we have just created a JSON file but we didn't use it inside our cast or JSX. So first you have to run this as local server. To run this we have a command. Okay, let me comment it. The command is npx. Basically you have known npm. Npm is node package manager. Here you're using npx, which is without installing those packages, you can use those packages portably. It means you're not installing it, you're just using it as it is. So npx, so which package you're going to use? JSON-server. We are going to use JSON server over here. So --watch and data slash, our file name is cards.json. Okay, so from JSON server package, watch data slash cards.json. Data slash cards.json is the path of a JSON file. It's in data cards.json. Okay, so next we're gonna tell host this thing in a particular port. So hyphen port 3000. So why 3000? Let me open this terminal. You can see where is this? Yeah, you can see our React is using port 5173 over here, which is our Witty application is using 5173 over here. So already a port is accessed over here with 5173. So we're just telling use port 3000 over here. Okay, and hyphen static dot slash data. So what this says is whatever files or folders inside this data, even bring those things also inside our local server. So what we have assets folder, right? To access this assets folder, we are just giving this hyphen static dot slash data. So let me cut this and we can paste it in terminal. So in terminal, you can see already we are just running this Witty application. You can't just go and paste it over here. So no need to disturb this. We'll just create a new terminal. Here we have plus icon, right? If you click on plus, a new terminal will be created. So here just paste these lines of code and hit enter. So here you can see a endpoints is being generated. For me, it happened without any configurations, but if you're doing it first time, it will ask you whether you wanted to get the access from JSON package. You have to just type Y and just click the button enter, which is yes and enter. Okay, so we got our endpoints over here. I'll just copy this. I'll go to web page and I'll just paste it over here. Okay, I'll just give enter. You can see our JSON file is been loaded over here. So now inside our cards.jsx, okay, here instead of this fetch API URL, I'll just give our URL, okay, fetch the URL which we served locally in a localhost. So now console.response, all these things are fine. Now let's go to our Witty application. You can see still it shows an error because map function is being empty over here. We didn't map anything over here, right? So now what I'm gonna do is instead of uh, printing this thing, okay, let this be happen over here. I'll just comment this. I'll just tell you later. We have to use this. I'll just tell you later. So now in data function, we are just console.log data. Instead of this, see, now in our cards has been set to null. We don't have anything in our cards. So that's why we are getting an error in map. We can't map anything, right? Because cards is null over here. So now here I'll just use the setter method, set cards, okay, bracket. What you have to set? You have to set the data, because we are just getting this URL files in response and we are just setting inside the data over here. Okay, and in previous episode I have intentionally said you one thing, which is don't use setter method inside use effect, because it will execute into an infinite loop and it will get stuck in a loop. I said you right. Same way I have also explained a topic which is dependency of use effect. When you are passing an list of element or arrays in a second argument as a use effect will be using those state variables or else variables, and it will be acting on those dependency. But here I have just included a square brackets. This indicates it's gonna be dependent without any state variables, which is use effect is gonna render only once. So it won't enter into a infinite loop because we have used dependency of an empty list. I hope you guys understand this. So in previous we had dummy over here. Whatever happens to this dummy, then only this use effect will be changing over here. Here I'm just giving it as empty over here, which is nothing is being given over there. So use effect will be run only once. Okay. So now dot then data sit cuts data. So now if you go and check, same thing, you'll just get an error reading map is been issued over here. Why? Because as we seen earlier, before this response or JSON file gets printed, what this got printed? It printed some kind of informations of a JSON file, but it's not a proper JSON, right? So same happening over here. We have just used this URL to fetch the data, but we didn't convert that into a JSON file. So we will just uncomment this, okay? And now if you go and check, again it says cannot read the properties of null map. Why? Because, so here you can see again it says it cannot read the map, it cannot use the map function, because I said you right, fetch will take some time to fetch the data, it will just give a promise. So what happens at the first time itself, React will render all the components. So okay, so React will render all the components. What happens to the first time? First time use state will be null, basically cards will be empty over there. So if cards is empty, we can't map anything, so map function throws an error. While after some time, the fetch values will fetch the data and it will store in our data, and it will just use the set cards method and it will just set the cards. But what's the use over here? We have already rendered all the UI, right? So even though if you use setter method over here, if you set the JSON files over this cards, you can't do anything with it because all the UI is been rendered in a first shot itself. So we have to use an if else statement over here. So what I'm gonna say is if not cards, then return empty fragment. So what I'm trying to say is if cards is null, okay, while it takes some time to fetch the data, right? So during those time cards will be null. If not cards, then return an empty fragment. Once you get the data from the fetched thing, then you just use this map function and render the elements in the UI. Now let's go and check. So here you can see our HTML course has been rendered properly, but still images are not visible over here. Let's come to that later. So in few minutes back I have said you right, if we just remove this JSON file, I mean this line over here, we got an error. That's because without using this line, I mean once we print this line, our URL files looks like in this manner, which is not a proper JSON file. So we are just using this line to convert the given response into a JSON file, and we are just using into our setter method over here. Okay, so now everything is sorted except the image thing. Let's fix the image thing also. Why this image didn't work over here? Because the location which we have gave is wrong over here, because we have just given assets html.png, but we are just using this as a URL, right? This is our location path. So here our URL should be changed over here. Example, let's go to this and copy, okay, not this, yeah, copy link. I'll just create a new tab and I paste. Okay, here you can see it's in assets slash html.png. I'll just copy this. Okay, I'll just give enter. You can see our image is over here. Our image is stored in this location, http slash slash localhost 3000 is the port, assets is the folder, html.png is the name of the file. It's been stored over here. So we have to give a proper URL over here. So which is, okay, I'll just remove this and I'll paste this. Okay, I'll just copy this, not this, I'll just copy this alone, https alone, paste slash, okay, paste and paste. Am I doing something wrong? Because learn JS, learn React, okay, everything is good. Let me go and check. Still it shows an error. What's the error? This doesn't have a file. Okay, failed to fetch. What's the issue? I'll just copy the link. I'll just paste over here. Okay, it's in here. Okay, I don't know what's the issue. I guess some URL thing. Okay, it's in HTTP, but we have used HTTPS. It should be HTTP over here. So now, okay, now it got worked. So this is how you can serve your own JSON file to a local server, and you can use it to our web page to render it. So this is how you can fetch an API using endpoints. So in this video, we have just looked into how to use an already existing endpoint inside your React application, as well as how you can create your own JSON file and host it as local server, and you can bring those endpoints into your own React web page and rendering it inside the UI. Hope you guys understood this fetch API concept, and thank you. See you in the 14th episode of our React series. Until then, stay tuned. Thank you.